343 has finally addressed why Halo Infinite looks so bad, looks the way it does, and exactly how old this gameplay build is, what they're changing based on the feedback from the community, and the whole 4K 60 FPS factor on the Xbox Series X, and how it might be ruining the entire game. Also, the art style concerns, and much more. Before we get started, be sure to smash that like button blue, as every like helps boost the video up the YouTube algorithm and really supports me as a content creator. Thanks so much, let's jump into it. This video is supported by Audible. Snag yourself a free Halo audiobook right down in the description below. So I already made a video very similar to this one, why Halo Infinite looks so bad, but unlike that video, this one actually has a lot more insights. Last time it was Xbox that responded to this. They said, we're in the middle of a bad time right now. The demo is actually running on PC. And after reading some comments, I've come to agree that these kind of felt like excuses, especially since they didn't tell us at all that this demo was running on PC until after the gameplay started getting criticized. But we had Xbox tell us to rewatch the trailers in 4K and 60 FPS, as if that would actually get rid of the problems, and surprise, it doesn't. In fact, the whole 4K and 60 FPS is a gimmick that is a part of the problem. But to catch you up to snuff, basically a lot of the community is very underwhelmed by these graphics. The lighting looks poor, the graphics are flat, and so on. For a game that's been in development for 5 years, there must be some explanation, and this demo must be pretty old, right? Well, think again. They start off by saying, first, we want to acknowledge that yes, we've heard the feedback coming from parts of the community regarding the visuals in the Halo Infinite campaign demo. While we see and hear far more positive than negative, we do want to share a bit more context. From our perspective, there are two key areas being debated around the community: overall art style and visual fidelity. Based on our learnings from Halo 4 and Halo 5 and Halo Wars 2, along with strong community feedback, we decided to shift back towards the legacy aesthetics that define the original trilogy. With Halo Infinite, we're returning to a more classic art style, which was a key message going back to the very first reveal that garnered enthusiastic and positive responses. This translates to a more vibrant palette, cleaner models, and objects with less noise, though it doesn't mean less detail. While we appreciate this may not be everyone's personal preference, we stand by this decision and are happy to see it resonating with so many fans around the world. So if I could interject here real quick, I don't think it's so much the art style that people are having a problem with, although it certainly seems that way. It's the lighting that's making these models look really cartoony and flat and just generally bad. So once they fix the lighting, I think people get a much better understanding as to what the models actually look like in game. But I digress. They continue to say, the second theme being discussed involves visual fidelity. Negative feedback in this area includes comments around characters and objects appearing flat, simplistic, and plastic-like, lighting feeling dull and flat, and object pop-in. We've read your comments, we've seen the homemade examples of retouched content, and yes, we've heard the DigitalFoundry assessments. In many ways, we are in agreement here. We do have work to address some of these areas and raise the level of fidelity and overall presentation for the final game. The build used to run the campaign demo was work in progress from several weeks ago. There it is, guys. That's how old the demo is. Several weeks. And they continue with a variety of graphical elements and game systems still being finished and polished. While some of the feedback was expected and speaks to areas already in progress, other aspects of feedback have brought new opportunities and considerations to light that the team is taking very seriously and working to access. We don't have firm answers or outcomes to share yet, but the team is working as quickly as possible on plans to address some of the feedback around detail, clarity, and overall fidelity. The team is committed and focused on making sure to have a beautiful world for players to explore when we launch. So the big takeaways here is that 343 has seen and heard our feedback and are adjusting to it. And I believe they are doing this justice because 343 has gotten really good at working with the community these past few years. And also they said that they are sticking by the art style. If you don't like the art style, I wouldn't freak out much because honestly, I think it's the lighting. Honestly, those first two trailers in 2018 and 2019 look great to me, and I think they look great to most Halo fans. And those are probably more representative of what the game should look like. But let's talk about the gameplay build, alright? This was only captured several weeks ago. which is crazy to me. And to add to that, it was apparently polished up and made to look better for the premiere, since they knew they wanted this island to be the focus for the gameplay reveal, as confirmed in a 343 interview. Now, I don't know why, but people kept saying this demo was 4 months old. Very specific time, 4 months, right? Some people were saying it's 6 to 12 months old. I was hoping that too. But it doesn't really make sense to me that they would capture this really old gameplay and not go back and update it with fresh gameplay. So it's the latest and most updated representation of the game. But several weeks is no older than 8 or 9 weeks, alright? Meaning what we saw here was recorded sometime in May or even as recent as June this year. With that being said, there is a lot of work for 343 to do to meet people's expectations here and get the game up to snuff. And the fact that they acknowledge DigitalFoundry's video on the subject is great, but has got me a bit concerned. Xbox recently talked about this, saying that there is plenty of time for them to work on this game, you know, considering everything is still work in progress. But honestly, if the Xbox Series X releases before Black Friday in late November, then guys, we are talking about less than 4 months to fix everything that 343 has not fixed, including bug issues and just polishing the game overall. Now, we really have no idea how complete this game is, but we do know that the lighting and graphics are struggling here and that they have less than a couple months to fix it. And considering that most Halo games go gold about 3 to 5 weeks before the game actually releases, assuming Halo Infinite releases in late November, because we do know that Halo Infinite is supposed to release right alongside the Xbox Series X as a launch title, then that means that 343 might have less than 3 months to fix everything. But 343 does talk about improving the lighting, and also thanks community feedback, this has pushed them to consider improving other areas in the game and hinted at making other assets look better, such as the Brute Commander, for example, look more creepy, bruised up, and maybe overall adding more damage and scratches and worn out armor to the brutes and other things like that. Or maybe even removing or changing the hexagon pillars, which I think almost the entire Halo community can agree on that we all hate these. And it's things like this that I think are going to be addressed, things that 343 didn't even really consider was such a big problem with the community. But after seeing DigitalFoundry's breakdown of exactly why, on a technical level, is struggling with lighting with the day and night cycle, which essentially is just models not being well lit with proper cube maps in the world, it's all basically fake lighting that is going on, and it just doesn't look good in the current system that 343 has going on, and it's kind of an older approach and not so up to date. But if we're talking about reworking this whole system to make it look better, then 343 will need more than 3 to 5 months to work on this. I suppose this would be a good part where I would just say, guys, I really don't think we should expect much more. I could be wrong. I'm not a game developer, nor am I at 343 as an employee. I have no idea, but considering the current challenges right now for 343, including everything that they have to address before release, I just don't see things getting better at launch. However, I see things perhaps improving after launch. You know, Halo 3 actually suffered with the same issues. People did not like the lighting and how the game actually looked with Halo 3, but Halo 3 is really visually stunning, and when you put Halo 3, its finished product, next to what we have in Halo Infinite, which objectively isn't a fair comparison because Halo 3 is finished here, but in defense of 343 Industries, day and night cycles are a new thing to Halo and are kinda hard to achieve in general, at least on such a new engine like the Slipspace engine. To have real-time bounce lighting is not easy at all, and it took Unreal Engine 20 years to nail it. But even if the lighting looks worse than it does in the demo than in the final game, I'm gonna pull out this really classic argument, which is, why care so much about the graphics? At the end of the day, Halo Infinite has already settled on this art style. This is what's staying, and honestly, it's not supposed to be realistic. If you look back at Halo 2 or Halo 3, our best memories weren't there because of the graphics looking great for the time. They were there because the gameplay was fantastic. Look at the future, 5 or 7 years from now, the game will probably look bad, even if the graphics did come out looking stunning. So what are you going to remember? The good graphics or the game actually being good? So a big thing about the Xbox Series X is that it's able to run games at 4K and 60 frames per second and have extreme optimization, making open world games, basically like Halo Infinite, possible and run with really great compression and be capable of massive worlds. The problem is that Slipspace engine is fairly new, and 343 only has months to figure out these issues. Halo 5 had this thing called progressive resolution resolution system that basically scaled the game up and down, how stressed the engine was at a certain time in the game, so that maybe if there was a lot of action going on, the game would be scaled down to 900p, and then once everything calmed down, would be back up to 1080p. Anyway, for Halo Infinite to run at 4K and 60 FPS all the time, I feel like it's the same reason why Halo 5 had issues at launch as well. There was a lot of things that 343 sacrificed so that they could get this 1080p and 60 FPS in. And although I think that 60 FPS is a thing that most gamers have accepted and have gotten used to, especially with multiplayer, I would like to make a case against 4K. And honestly, I don't think the Xbox Series X is capable enough to run a game like Halo Infinite at 4K without sacrificing a bunch of different things. A Steam hardware survey reported that only 3 to 5% of PC gamers have 4K displays, and there's nothing in that survey that even those small amount of people are even Halo fans, whereas 80% plus people have the standard 1080p screen. So I feel like this whole 4K thing at the moment is a massive marketing gimmick. Xbox Series X is powerful, but not powerful enough to run top-notch games at 4K and also tackle real-time lighting across the world on a new engine that's basically a reboot. By the way, the team has never missed with these kind of mechanics before on a Halo game, so there is just a lot of room for disaster here. If you don't know, resolutions do take up a massive amount of processing power, and I know that the Xbox Series X has 10 times the processing power per pixel or whatever, but if they're sacrificing any capacity of the graphics or the size of the world, or using a big bite of the processing power on the Xbox and or engine, then I don't think it's worth it, honestly. Let's say that 1 every million Halo fans that buy Halo Infinite, only 30 to 50,000 of them have 4K displays, but there's no guarantee that they're even going to play on PC or the Xbox Series X. So if you reduce these numbers down to maybe 20 to 30,000, that's still being generous, I think, then we're talking about really just 2% of Halo fans actually benefiting from 4K, whereas the other 98% are not. Honestly, if the game was to drop 4K to 2K, then I think it would be worth it. 4K may be a thing in the future, but it's not happening yet, and I think the Xbox Series X is overshooting and kind of limiting games at the end of the day. Now, I might be wrong about this whole segment because I don't understand everything going on with the hardware and software, but I do understand logistics, and I do understand that a bigger resolution means that it's using more power and processing in one way or another, and if you were to reduce that, I just wonder what things would be possible on a graphical or technical level that weren't really possible before. I should also mention that, of course, Halo Infinite is releasing on Xbox One past gen, and that could make some systems, some things on a technical level kind of past gen as well, and that might be why things kind of look a little bit limiting, a little bit like past gen. I imagine that when they put it on the Xbox Series X, they can just turn up the graphics up a notch, but it might not be that simple. So just some food for thought. Let's shift gears to the art style. I feel at times that the art style is confused in this campaign demo. Although I felt like I never knew exactly what it was, I think it's the lighting. And our brains are really good at telling us that the lighting is screwed up here. And honestly, I think it's the culprit for a lot of concern. So if they figure out this, then I think a lot of things are going to be worked out. Personally, I am thrilled that they are going back to the classic art design and making things less busy with less noise. Halo has always had a very distinct but subtle art style. Like Halo 4 and Halo 5 really never captured that in my opinion, and they completely went out in left field. But with the weapons and art style, the stories, and even soundtrack from previous Halo games, specifically Halo Wars 2, tying in with Halo Infinite, I think it may be time to look closer at Halo Wars 2 as a prelude, as a warm-up to Halo Infinite. While it's confirmed that this game won't need any pre-context to understand completely, I believe the game visually, narratively, and music-wise is already seeming very similar to that of Halo Wars 2. This also makes me think that the Spirit of Fire, the Flood, the Ark, and so on will be huge set pieces in Halo Infinite or its immediate sequel. Be sure to let me know what you think about all this down in the comment section below. Guys, be sure to snag yourself that free Halo audiobook. It's a quick sign up, link down in the description. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I tried to not really repeat myself as to what I talked about in the original video, but 4K might be a big problem. I might be completely wrong about that. Let me know down in the comment section below if you have any insights about that. But also, what do you think about the build just being a few weeks old? Do you think 343 has time to fix everything? And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be updated as soon as brand new Halo news or lore comes out here on HaloFollower. I'll catch you guys in the next one soon. Peace.